Hi, it's Nathan from I Need IVF. Today's talk is going to be a little bit different, so we're going to have a coffee and a chat. As you can see, I love penguins. This one's going to be a little bit more freeform, and we're going to be talking about male infertility. As you can read in the title, this is purely about, let's talk about male infertility. So, first of all, let's just think, why do we need to talk about male infertility? Well, the statistics show that in all couples, 30% of the reasons for infertility are female, 30% of them are male, 15% are both, and 25% are unexplained. So it's a pretty even split between males and females. Rachel and I have been on our infertility and our IVF journey. We've met loads of couples who've got all manner of infertility, both female and male. And what we found is that men don't talk about it. I mean, eventually they'll open up to another man, but even in their own relationship, they often don't talk about it. And I think as we're getting further and further, we're getting older as we're trying for children. You know, many people are now in the sort of mid-30s when they even start trying. And this often means that you don't find out you're infertile till a little bit later in life. You know, and I think there's quite a number of factors sort of about why men don't engage as much in this discussion. One of them is that the conversation about fertility, IVF, pregnancy, parenting, it's still sort of built for a female audience. And while, you know, at the end of the day, during IVF, women do have to go through the majority of the treatment. You know, it's very, very hard on them. Men are there to support them through it, absolutely. And pregnancy, they have to carry the child. You know, and breastfeeding during the early parts of parenting, it does fall to the woman. But I do feel as though the men can be left out of conversations. I mean, I experienced this recently when our health visitor came over. And again, the conversation was just very, very female dominated. And I think that stems from that sort of female dominance in those sectors all the way down into fertility. I mean, one of the things I like to sort of think about is sort of the maternal clock. We are mammals, you know. Our bodies have evolved to sexually reproduce. We want to reproduce. So part of that back part of your brain still wants to create offspring, you know. So that drive to create children is still there. But I think that is overridden by a lot of societal impacts of sort of gender roles, with men having to be strong, we have to perform, we have to look after our women, and those feelings of guilt if we're not performing in those duties. And I think that really can have quite a strong impact upon the way that men view and don't talk about infertility. I mean, let's think a little bit about a typical infertility journey. You have a conversation, you start trying for kids. You get 6 months down the line and you think, well, it's not happened yet. And what happens? The woman starts tracking her cycle and tests for ovulation. And man says, yeah, that's fine. And there's very little discussion about male infertility, so it just carries on. The only thing that might really be discussed at that stage is maybe looking at your diet, your lifestyle, and any habits that you might have. Another 6 to 12 months goes on, stress is rising, your sex life's changed because you're trying to conceive, and eventually we'll go to the GP. And again, I mean, when I got told to go to the GP, I actually procrastinated for another 2 weeks because I was already feeling guilty that it wasn't happening. I thought it might be me. I didn't know how to feel about it, so I blamed work. I said, I can't go because I'm too busy with work. After 2 weeks, obviously I did go, but I could have done it sooner, you know. So these sort of mindsets that we get into. And then you have your fertility testing, get your diagnosis, and then you deal with whatever comes from it. And I think there's a couple of problems with that, really. It's not really a balanced equation. We as men aren't engaging in the conversation about our fertility early enough, you know, and I think we can change that to a more equal infertility journey. You know, step one, You start talking about conception, absolutely, as you would do in the first one, but you include things about how your sex life is going to change, how having sex every 2 to 3 days without fail is going to feel, that it's really, really important to understand, and what are you going to do as a couple to keep that romance and that intimacy alive. Making decisions before you get there about when you're going to start working with the female cycle, and also home testing your male fertility, because you can now get home tests. So actually starting that more equal discussion early on, agreeing about your lifestyle changes that you're going to make as a couple so you can support each other through that. And do some baseline tests, potentially even. You know, there are sperm tests out there that aren't crazy expensive, and you can use those to check the concentration and the mobility of your sperm. And if you get a really, really problematic result, i.e. you have no sperm or incredibly, incredibly low concentrations or movements, you can go to the GP straight away, have a full semen analysis, and you potentially could save yourself 2 years of trying. So, you know, there's that way of looking at it. And if you agree that after 6 months you'll check, follow through on it. Keep those discussions open. You know, it's really, really important to keep those discussions open the whole way. And then when you do finally go for fertility, go together. Your fertility is a joint fertility. It's the couple's fertility, not female fertility and male fertility. It's your couple's fertility. So just be engaged in the process, in the conversation, quality issues, everything comes up. So find a safe place to speak, and speak to your partner about these things. It's really, really important. So we briefly sort of touched on why I think the conversation's so one-sided, and we sort of looked at the biological side of it, you know, that maternal clock. But society has been changing, you know, we're becoming more open-minded. Racial and sexual equality, they're really clearly defined now, and they're actively pursued. Religious and sexual choices are respected and understood. Don't get me wrong, none of these things are perfect, and women's rights are still a very, very hot topic. But I do think that infertility and parenting are two sort of key areas where actually men's rights aren't quite there yet, and I think that's something where it's not part of that mainstream conversation, and I think we do have to start talking about it for it to become that. We are going a long way to blur out those sort of gender roles, and, you know, rightly so, but there is that discrepancy still there. For me, it's open up to your partner, have those conversations about male fertility early, and keep them going throughout that journey. Test your sperm. Take that empowerment that knowledge offers you. When you get to sort of IVF and fertility treatment, make sure you're going to every appointment. It's all about the both of you, you know. It's a combination of your fertilities that will dictate whether, you know, you finally do manage to produce a child, which is obviously the ultimate goal in all this. One thing that sort of sticks in my mind is that my brother-in-law took a year off after my sister had her year's maternity to look after the children. When he had that year off, you know, certain people, other mums, some colleagues potentially, and people in general, made him feel like he was doing something wrong, you know, that his career would suffer and that he should be just providing. I know that's not really on topic, but I feel as though the two are quite closely linked. So I'd love to absolutely hear your thoughts on male fertility and talking about it and your experiences with it. I want to get the conversation going about male fertility. I think it's a really, really important topic. Thanks ever so much for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe for more. And great to speak to you. Thank you.